Will enhance my good voice. Thank you very much. Just a little bit. Okay, welcome everybody to the 2023 Annual Committed Giving Campaign. It's not the startup, but it is, the way we do these things. It's called State of Grace, really. And what this is going to be is really more of a financial overview than anything else. Sort of where we are, where we're going, how we get there. And so it's going to be pretty boring. I'd like to orient everyone around our mission statement. So, welcome to the transformative power of Christ's love. Here you belong. So, I think everybody knows by now that that's the mission statement that the vestry discerned 3 years ago at this point. So, I think it says who we are. It's rather beautiful and powerful. Okay. Where we are, fall 2023. We're not in fall of 2023. We're actually in fall of 2022. So just ignore that. So the average daily attendance at Grace Church, Don LaPatina does a great job of getting out a spreadsheet with all of the attendance for both our in the nave and also online attendance. And so we are not back to pre-pandemic levels. Our in-person average daily attendance on Sundays is 73. When we include online, which has become an important part of our ministry here at Grace Church, we are at about 120. I want to talk a little bit about ministries which continue at Grace Church. Holy Family Ministries, if you were here a couple of weeks ago, you saw Chaplain Leslie Hunter.
2023, Leslie.
I'll settle in. I've got all sorts of numbers and names in my head. So Chaplain Leslie Hunter, who gave a great sermon, and also we made our annual donation to Holy Family Ministries, and many of you support Holy Family Ministries through charity events and things like that, and it's very much appreciated. So just an example of outreach, and pads and our soup kitchen have continued. I know Mary organizes a team that goes out for the soup kitchen every month, and that has continued. So we're still doing a lot of the outreach into the community. We're going to talk about that word actually at the end, outreach. Children's formation. Megan Manor, as I said in announcements, has had a couple of reflections, and she's really organizing children's formation. If you're interested in getting involved in children's formation and being a teacher on Sundays, please see Megan. There's more information in Grace Notes. And then Senior High and Lift are meeting on Sundays. Mark and Melinda are leading the Lift team, thank you very much, and Kevin is leading the Senior High Youth Group, Kevin and Gretchen. So they are continuing to meet on Sundays as well. And we've done, a fair amount of fellowship. Circle of Grace is coming back online, and we had a great chili cook-off on October 30th. Where is Christine? The new queen, the greatest queen.
What number was she?
Yeah.
She was number one.
Yeah.
Number one. So it was interesting because they were like chili 9 or something, or chili 7. So it was late in entry and was actually like gaining momentum. And then Christine was like, "We need to stop this." Okay, financial report. The good news. Grace Church is in relatively good shape in 2022. As we sit here on November 13th, 2022, probably sense a theme, but Grace Church is in pretty good shape. We got employee retention credits. They came into the tune of $193,385, which was more than $165,000 more than budgeted, which is astounding and a great gift, but a bluebird. One that we can't count on going forward. But it is indeed good news for this year, absolutely. As such, we're almost $100,000 ahead of the budget that we made at the beginning of the year and then revised when Reverend Donna left. We made some adjustments there. And if pledges come in as expected, we'll end the year with about a $70,000 surplus. Now, you may look at this and say, why are we $100,000 ahead of budget if the ERC was $165,000 ahead of budget? So, That is because some pledges still need to come in. We're a little behind on pledges, but we're accustomed to being behind on pledges at this time of the year. David pointed out in our treasurer's report, and David Fisher's our treasurer, does a wonderful job at the vestry putting together a treasurer's report, mainly because I don't sit there and go through things I really don't understand for like 15 minutes, and it's just a simple treasurer's report. But we get a lot of collections at the beginning of the year, and we get a lot of collections at the end of the year. So we're comfortable that we're on track, right?
What is an employee retention credit? Is that from COVID?
So yeah, so it's basically, so like the PPP loans, the employee retention credit was basically an opportunity to say, hey, if you kept people on in a really tough time, we're going to give you a credit for that. And it's not a credit per se. I mean, it is a payment. Like $193,000 landed in our bank account. So, which is fantastic. And kudos to Keith Manor and his team, who made us aware of that, worked really hard on it. We had a call about it, and lo and behold, here we are with $193,000 of unexpected income. To give you an idea, our budget runs somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million a year. So it's meaningful. So, financial report, the bad news. And I don't know if you've ever seen Ricky Gervais at the award show where he says, this is the last time. So, this is the last time. So, I can give you, I can kind of, my point is to give kind of the straight scoop here about where we are. Grace Church is not on a long-term fiscally sustainable condition track. Sorry, it's poorly written. Due to a shrinking congregation. We need to figure out a way to get more people in the pews. This is not unusual for churches today, and actually, as these things go, relative to the rest of the organized religious world, Grace Church is actually in relatively good shape. We not only will come in ahead of budget this year, we have an endowment that's about, last check, $2.78 million. So, all things being equal, we're in relatively good shape. I mentioned we had 3 significant bluebirds. We had 2 PPP loans for a total of over $250,000 in 2020 and 2021. Thank goodness. We just talked about the employee retention credit. So now we're up to what, $450,000 about, somewhere around there, in just bluebirds that we've gotten over the last few years. Our endowment distributions have masked some operating shortfalls as well. Sarah Timmons and I are working through how we communicate between the vestry distribution and the endowment committee. But basically the idea is that we have 3 separate buckets, in essence, that we're allowed to use the endowment distribution for. There's a 4th bucket, but it's more directed donations and really doesn't apply on a year-to-year basis. So we can use them for outreach. We can use them for vestry building maintenance, what we call sort of long-term expenses. So the way to think about that is it's not the light bulbs and these lights, it's more like when we resurface the parking lot, that's something that the vestry building maintenance distribution pays for. And then the other is special projects, seeding new ministries. We have not spent all of the allocation on those 3 buckets over the last 3 years. Nobody's done anything wrong. I mean, the money's still all there, but it's just gone back onto the balance sheet. And the problem is one, we need to kind of tick and tie and cross T's and dot I's with the endowment charter, which Sarah and I are going to do this year and going forward. But again, nobody's done anything wrong, but the fact is that it gives a deceptive view of our fiscal position, because we're not supposed to use that for operating funds, and that's a big number that we're trying to get under control. So, Bill.
Mike, I understand that the employee retention credit is a one-time government handout, but the PPP loans, the loan is actually a misnomer.
Yeah.
We don't pay that back.
No, we don't. We don't. So you have to go through the paperwork, and we have the loan turns into a grant in essence. So good point.
So all 3 of those things are government COVID handouts. They're over They're great for us, but they're not coming back.
No, right, exactly. They're,
Done.
no, that's a great point. So anyway, the point is that when we go back to the slide before and say that Grace Church is in relatively good shape here on November 13th, 2022, that's the point, is to be fully transparent. We are not in a position that's sustainable over the long run when we talk about pledges or committed giving. That's really what the message is. So I'll look ahead at 2023. Likely we're going to be in a recessionary environment. There's arguments about whether we're already in a recessionary environment. I don't care. It's, however you want to put it, it's likely to be not as good as it has been for the last 3 years. We can't plan on any more bloopers. I mean, this employee retention credit thing was just out of the blue. And so we can't plan on any more. Expenses are likely to increase, inflation, potential investments that are being discussed. We've talked about things like a youth minister, and we've talked about other sort of, and hopefully we could, from using the vestry distribution, we can use some of that money on that sort of thing. But it's still, an expense that's going to go onto the balance sheet. And the last thing I'll say is about the long-term financial condition of the church. In the last meeting, the last vestry meeting, the vestry approved the formation of a property committee to discuss how 142 East First Street, which is the Hallmark House, fits into the future of Grace Church after the rector transition. So that conversation has started. Kudos to Mary for starting that conversation. And John Barr. Because it needs to be discussed. Whatever we do, and there are a lot of emotions around that house, no question about it, but whatever we do, we need to start, we're in a position where we need to start thinking about the long-term financial future of the church. And when you've got, a sort of a prime piece of property here in Hinsdale and another house, and this part of the campus, you start to, it's only responsible to start asking some questions and forming a committee, so.
And the other house will be just another house, it's fabulous.
It is fabulous. It is fantastic. That house is absolutely spectacular. Bruce George, thank you very much. So,
Shameless promotion.
yeah, exactly. Do you have cards? Nobody has cards anymore. That's fine. You can link in with Bruce. Okay. So, this is the committed giving history and the 2023 goal. I would do the thing where you roll out and then the surprise would be, but I don't know how to do that. So it's enough that I actually use PowerPoint. I want you to look at this. I mean, you can look here, and I just this morning did sort of a quick sweat of when you take away the vestry, you start with expenses that we usually, just a number that we usually have. I started this year at $900,000. If you ask me if the parish is really going well, we could probably have about $1 million worth of expenses. Then you subtract out the vestry distribution from the endowment, and you subtract out all of the revenue that we get other than pledges. And this number kind of ticks to a balanced budget, right? This is what we had last year. Is that $210,000? I mean, and that is just strictly back of the envelope, like how far we would fall short of a fully operational budget in terms of a deficit. And we have a great endowment that's fantastic, but the endowment is there for security. It's not there to fund the operations of the church, only in very, very desperate times. And so the point is, we don't want to get to those desperate times, right? So, and you can see what happened. I can show you, I would try, but I really don't want to screw up my PowerPoint. But I could show you like the last 10 years of the total giving units, the annual commitments, and the average pledge at Grace Church. The average pledge at Grace Church over the last 10 years has stayed relatively flat. It's somewhere between $4,200 and $4,800. So what does that tell you?
Numbers. That's different.
That's the problem, right? So we need to figure out how to get more people in the pews out there and more people watching online. That's going to be an important part of our ministry. So, so this you saw last year. We can't survive in the long run at this pace. All right, so if I've thoroughly depressed everybody, I apologize. But our goal this year is going to be $525,000. The letters that you got with the pledge cards with the suggested donation reflect that that committed campaign giving goal. Obviously, it's well short of, you know, something like that. But you know, you can't expect average pledges after this length of time to go up. You have to get more people. So, any questions up till now? Because I want to do a little exercise.
Let me get you the microphone too, so we can get it.
And we're gonna have time for questions at the end.
Okay.
But
We can hear it.
We can hear it.
oh yeah, we can hear you.
But it might not come through on the recording, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, Melinda.
Does anyone follow up if somebody has pledged previously and they don't turn in a pledge card? Does anybody follow up with them?
Yeah, so the vestry will make calls as the pledge season goes on. That'll start happening this week and next. But we're trying to wrap this up by sort of Thanksgiving. But yes, the vestry actually follows up and makes calls. We send out emails. We'll also send out thank you notes for those who do pledge. But the answer is yes.
But do you ask the substantive question if somebody is no longer giving, why?
If we can get them on the phone. I mean, that's the real problem, is that I would say, I don't know, vestry members here, what's the hit rate on, if we each get 15 names, the hit rate is
30%.
30%. So, yeah, and, you know, we do ask if they haven't, or hopefully it's a conversation where, you know, you get the person towards, hey, what's going on? Why don't you pledge anymore? I had one of those conversations not too long ago, and it's good. We encourage the vestry to take notes and give us feedback. So we are trying definitely to suss out why people would stop giving, why they would stop coming to church. I mean, those are important questions, right? That's a great question. So we do. The problem is getting people on the phone. So, all right. Like I said, after this next slide, we're going to have a chance for questions. But so we were sitting in our vestry meeting on Monday night. Vestry meetings are great because we have a wonderful vestry. There's so much energy around this place in the vestry, and the way that the vestry kind of is there to think and brainstorm and ask questions and give thoughts. And sometimes for the senior ward, it's like, I don't know. But it's great that there's so much engagement from the vestry. And so one of the things that came up the other day was, okay, Mike, you've given us all this bad news. Yeah, bad news, right? I mean, we're still relatively okay, but we need to start thinking about the future. How are we going to grow? And everybody said, well, outreach. And I said, this may sound like a dumb question, but what is outreach? Like, what is it? I think we have this definition. So the definition that I saw this morning as I was embarking on this exercise, which may fall flat, but I'm going to ask for a little audience participation. An organization's involvement with or activity in the community, especially in the context of social welfare. But I thought that was a good definition because it's how do we get out there in the community. So let's just do a little exercise. It won't take long. Kickoff is in 12 minutes. So let's do a little exercise and just shout out what you think of as outreach.
Helping others less fortunate.
Yeah, serving and underserved.
What's that, Sam?
They're the same thing as what I said, the underserved.
Serve.
Serving the underserved.
Serving the underserved. What else?
Giving. time and treasure.
That's why I wasn't a school teacher, with this definition of a doctor.
Well, if you're going to be right-handed, it
Yeah.
Definitely worked.
Could we, how we present ourselves in the community though?
Great,
And
Sarah.
just our own, as citizens of Grace, how are we,
How we reach out to the community?
yeah, and represent Grace as members of the community?
I'd say how we unite ourselves as well. We're not just helping the underserved, we're helping ourselves as well. Try to figure that out.
So I'm interested, this is interesting, right? Because you start here and you think, okay, well, that's a pretty sort of standard definition of outreach, right? But as we got through serving underserved, giving time and treasure, how we reach out and represent to the community, helping ourselves. So I think the point I want to make is that we need to start thinking about, in my opinion, we need to start thinking about outreach far more expansively. If you ask me, when I was sitting there listening to the choir this morning, that's a form of outreach, right? I mean, they're there, they're singing, and they're coming out into our community with song, right? I think we need to start thinking about outreach a lot more expansively than just the wonderful outreach that we do, that people think of as the soup kitchen or pads. It's far, far more than that. And we need to be able to reach out into the community, invite them into our community just by the simple act of reaching out into the community.
Mike, just one thing. I've taken over Dirk and Tony Markison with PADS, was
Yep.
just awesome for years and years. PADS has changed. With COVID and everything else, they now have a facility out in Downers Grove. They took over Red Roof Inn
Right, yeah.
out in Downers Grove. They really only, there's 3 churches that we participate with, and it's 3 times a year.
Yeah.
They only need 2 people for, from each church, basically.
Mhm.
So that's, I like doing it and everything, but, it's difficult for me to say, well, we need some volunteers when, we
Yeah.
kind
We
of
really
don't,
Right.
so.
No, we've done it before. You just hang the bags on the doors, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's even different than that.
It's even that.
Yeah, they come down to a room and they pick up their own meals.
Mr. Shamus.
Well, and so does that go to is, Pat, I mean, it's certainly very worthy. And
Oh, I'm not saying that we should disregard it or still not contribute to it. I'm just thinking maybe we could, have another organization as well rather than
Well,
just
is PADS not putting aside, we should keep doing it, I think.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
is PADS going to be an effective way for us to reach out in the community
Yeah.
and eventually move that number back to that number?
Right, no.
And those are
Best-
the questions
best
we
way.
asked, right?
Would an example of outreach last year, I think it was in August, we had sort of a picnic out here under the
Yeah.
tent.
Yeah.
And we had all kinds of people, we
Right.
all invited our friends to come and be part of it, and then you
Absolutely.
could see, like, what a great place this is. I mean, I felt like it was a
Rally for
great.
Grace?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, I mean, those are, and we made a little bit of money too, right?
Right.
Thank you, Mary and Jill. I mean, couldn't that be an example of outreach and the kind of thing, like, that we also
100%.
do very well?
Yes, 100%. That is outreach, and we need to look at that as outreach. It's not, fundraiser, but fellowship. The fellowship aspect of that was also outreach. I think we get bottled up into this notion of outreach as simply charity, for lack of a better word. And the fact is that outreach is the fellowship that we do with each other. Outreach is the spirit of women, getting together every week, and just, that's outreach, right? That continues to be outreach. I was reading through Grace Notes. Ellen Waterman is still involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She lives in Iowa.
Yeah.
We
So-
have a woman from Cincinnati who comes regularly.
Yeah. So that's the sort of outreach I think we need to focus on.
I mean, Mike, I would say this is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were, our companies, I don't think you'd use the word outreach.
Right.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
It's marketing, all
Right.
the things we do to grow our sales, and that comes through new customers.
Right.
Well, and we've always talked a lot about that here since Chris
Right.
arrived. And we've never been able to, and I don't mean to pin down somebody to do it.
Right.
And it's not something you just do once, it's a
Right.
constant.
Right.
And I think, there's ebbs and flows of what you can market at certain times of the year as well as certain years.
Right.
Because there are certain things we're doing better in some years than we don't in others.
Right.
So I think as we look forward, if you want to try to bring in more people, you ought to also look at what's going on in the community around here that you're going to try to bring these people from, and what are they doing? It's like a business, you look at your competition, what are
Right.
they doing?
What are they doing right?
Where are they pulling? What are their focuses? And now we have to mimic it. But if we're doing something similar, but it's a little different, I mean, you focus in on that.
Right.
So I think this is the same thing we had conversations about 15 years ago.
Right. No, we should keep having,
We should.
because I don't know that the challenge ever really changes.
It never changes.
Even when we were here.
Well, it's always,
That was
Same
smaller than.
that was smaller than the 300 we were,
Right.
forever. So I mean, it's always an ebb and a flow. And I love this church, and I think that's one of the things, like, how we view the community is a great way, how we represent ourselves and how we market ourselves to the community is huge.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see other churches, not just Episcopal churches,
Right.
but Christ Church. What do they do?
Yeah.
What does Union Church do? Or
Right.
things of that nature. What are they doing? That has been successful for them.
Or are they in the same position we are?
Right. It could be. It could be.
It could be nice to have some.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is, and I would also put out there, what does the diocese think? Because there's got to be other churches that we could partner with that would potentially, that are struggling way more than us, that gives us opportunity, I don't want to say to take their people, but I mean, ultimately, if you're providing an outlet.
You just said poach,
I mean,
Consolidation is
Consolidation
something
is very-
that gets discussed out
It
there.
gets discussed.
How
because
many? Do we really need 3
Four.
churches, 4 churches right there?
LaGrange, Western Springs, Thurden Hills, Hinsdale,
Right.
Elmhurst, Downers Grove.
And that-
How are we all doing?
Yeah,
One thing to look at too, when you're looking at the total giving units, it's not just about the money either. We're a smaller church in terms of manpower, and how many committees can each vestry member serve on? How many things can each of us here do?
Right.
We can't do what we did 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, not only from the money, we don't have the people to execute it, so we're gonna be needing to make some choices about what do we wanna focus on, and where do we think, what kinds of outreach are gonna help us get higher numbers, if we can even get there, which hopefully we can.
Right.
But it's also about we can't do everything we've always done, because we don't have enough people to do it well anymore.
I think that was one of the reasons of not the food, I think that was one of the decisions about the food truck. We don't have the manpower to do something like that every year and to keep going to the same people. It's like the chicken and the egg thing too. I mean, I think that's what you're talking about maybe is paying a person that's gonna do marketing. Where we coming up with that? We need more pledging units, it's-
Right.
Does the Episcopal Church, the diocese, anything like that, give any marketing support? Because I have to say something like High Point Church, which has started in Hinsdale, they rent space from the community house on
Right.
Sundays.
Yep.
Okay, they've got all their marketing paraphernalia, they've got notebooks and things with their name on it, and giveaways that they give to the kids, and they've got a booth thing with the canopy tent that sits there, and then they've got people with placards that stand on the corner of Madison and 8 on Sunday morning before the service that say like, welcome, come on in, High Point Church. I'm not saying I'm recommending that for here, but they've got like a whole marketing arm with all sorts of things that you would have for any business, except their business is bringing people into High Point Church.
Yeah.
Because nobody driving by the community house is going to think that that's High Point Church. but they're doing a lot of things that draw attention to themselves in a positive way. And I'll be honest, my kids have asked, can we go to High Point Church and see what it's all about? Because they see the signs and they've got all the giveaways and they've made themselves aware.
Right.
Does the diocese or anybody in the organization beyond just this church give any marketing support? Let's consider ourselves like a franchisee.
Mhm.
Are we getting like the McDonald's cups or anything like that? Or do we do it all ourselves?
We do it all ourselves. So I'm not aware of any resources that the diocese gives us. To be honest, I think the diocese has probably some pretty significant issues of its own. So it's a great question to ask.
That might be something that if you're gonna hire a good marketing resource, maybe you share it between two or three churches. And honestly, people in Downers Grove, we don't wanna try and bring them into Hinsdale. It's still pretty geographic how far most people are willing to travel. But if you had like a good marketing person who said, these are the 6 things we're gonna do, here's how you're gonna do it in Downers Grove. You know, it's the same giveaways. High Point probably gives those same things away nationally. I don't know if they're regional or whatever, but it doesn't have like Hinsdale on there.
Right.
They just talk about High Point Church and they build awareness. You could get a good marketing person, share them across a couple of churches, and not bear the full cost of them, which is gonna be significant to get somebody who's good. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think if you did partner with some of the other churches, which is why I said it wasn't necessarily the vote, I mean, that's how I mean, but you've got to, like you said, start to look at how do we leverage some of these across some of these churches
Right.
that are around here that are, because when we did it with paths years ago across the street, and so we can start to do that. Then you hone in on what is important in your community, and you get people tapped, and you go, oh, okay, you're doing that, oh, okay, great, you know.
Right.
A marketing person, though, is going to execute what the marketing person is told to do. If you bring in somebody to do that function, they won't know what to do unless they're directed. What Mike is talking about, I believe, and the Vestry has talked about for a long time, is we need to realign our vision as a community. Evangelization is new for us. As not only this community, but in the mainstream Episcopal Church, we're used to having people, entitlement people come through the door. The fact that we have to justify ourselves is a new concept. So even if we brought in a marketing person to do some outreach, as Melinda's talking about, we as a community still have to do the visioning work of which of those areas we're going to pick, where we get the biggest bang for the buck. Then we could have a marketing person execute, but we cannot outsource our visioning like you outsource lawn maintenance.
That is true. However, the marketing person would develop from those visions. If it's a good marketing person, if it's a bad marketing person, they're just waiting on you to say something. That's not a very good person.
It's got to be a partnership.
So right, absolutely. I'm not saying that. But they've got to come up with the ideas after the vision.
We give them the vision.
Right.
So something that I think, right here is statement of, it's like a business. So not only do we need to understand how we outreach, who do we outreach to? And we always say this from a business, and are we meeting our customers' needs? I mean, we go out as a company nationally more than twice a year to understand the needs of our clients, and they identify, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what's going well, and then based on their needs, that's how we develop which pieces fit within our vision and what we want to be as a community. Because if we don't meet some of these needs, we can outreach all we want, people aren't going to stay.
Yeah. The seminal book and process on growing churches is called The Purpose-Centered Church by Rick Warren. He spends half of that book talking exactly what Gretchen just talked about. Identifying your target market, knowing what keeps them up at night, and then creating marketing and outreach and ministries that meet those needs within our scope, of course. Not pandering, not saying stuff that's not us. You got to know, as Gretchen says, what they need, and Rick Warren says that's what evangelicals get taught to do from Jump Street. They get taught that if you were parachuted down in an area with nothing there, they get taught how to farm an area, how to grow a church. This is new for us, and as Gretchen says, that's a critical part of what we're gonna have to do here.
Or said another way, what are we marketing?
Right.
Okay, and, you know, we're, some big time themes in society and obviously in our community too, there is just the highest level of personal anxiety, okay? And there's a need for connection, and there's a need for community, okay? And there's a need for help, not just the underserved. I think everybody is wondering, all this stay at home and everything that has changed, all this digitalization, everything that has changed, there is this highest level of anxiety you can see in all the surveys. There's also this incredible need for convenience, okay? Which is why you don't see a lot of people in pews, myself included, okay? Now I'm online, okay? That's my choice. I don't know how many others are online, okay? But where does this all go in terms of who are we trying to help? Okay? And what is it we're going to do? We're going to have to probably do something differently, or we're going to be at 109, 108, 107, 106. Okay? So what, and one suggestion is, we just did this massive survey 3 or 4 years ago that said, we're terrific. We're so far ahead of where we were 10 years ago. You know, thank you to the leadership of Father Chris for driving spiritual growth, which attracted a lot of people. We should probably dust that off and say, how much of that applies today? Okay? What in there is or was our strength? How much of it is still our strength? How much of it will tactically potentially have to change if we want to maintain that strength? Because that strength, what people were saying is, I improved my life. I transferred my life because of what Grace Church did for me over the last 10 years. And we probably have to dust that off and see how much of it is relevant and how much of it will have to transform to what life's going to be like for the next 5 years. And that might be a good direction for us to go in, okay, to help us understand not just what we want to market, but also how we want to transform to help more people in the community, including ourselves.
But one obvious segment to me are young families. And I think Grace Preschool was very successful. You know, are we marketing to those families?
So it's interesting. We've tried. That's actually been a pretty tough nut to crack. There doesn't seem to be, and I don't know what the marketing methods have been, but I know we've tried, like with the pancake supper, we invite everybody in. With the chili cook-off, that we try to reach out for the chili cook-off. So we are making efforts to reach out into the preschool. Father Chris would say that almost counterintuitively is not traditionally a very fertile market for like bringing people into the church. And I don't know why that is. That's always puzzled me. But it's true. We've tried, and it's just been a very difficult. And maybe it's what Alex is talking about. Like, are we sending the right message?
I think that's how I know Jordan's heard that a lot of our kids all went there, and that's how we ate.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we should give up on it.
No. I'm not saying we should.
And maybe it's what we're marketing. I mean, maybe pancake suppers isn't it? Maybe it's an anxiety. Maybe it's a mothering class. Maybe it's a sibling class. Maybe it's a book. Well,
Right.
You know, and just, we need to look at how you reach the community and how they want to be reached.
So I can't remember if you guys when it started at Willow Creek originally, because my in-laws live there.
Yeah.
But when he went there, the main minister, he literally went door to door to people and said, why do you not go to church? So like things like the cross, obviously we're just going, but the cross makes me uncomfortable, so he didn't have a cross. They like music, so it's very entertainment centric, you know what I mean? Like there's a band and they do skits and so I think it's the relevancy, but still maintaining who we are, staying true to who we are.
Right.
So you can market all you want, but again, who are you marketing to and what's the reason people, it's not just Grace, why aren't you going to church? You know, families are busy, sports, whatever it is.
Right.
So I think that's important too. more knowledge. I don't think we can continue to survey ourselves as much as we need to.
Sure.
Look out,
Yeah, we need to market.
Look out.
What do we market? So-
I always thought it would be interesting too, when you put those charts up there and we say Holy Family, well, how much of a percentage are we giving to Holy Family and what, who comes back from Holy Family to us? So it would be interesting to see, like pads, we always put up there what it is, and now it sounds like there's not very much that's going on.
Right.
So we're involved in, so it'd be interesting to see where our budget is going and do we want to change that. I think Holy Family does a terrific job of marketing that.
Yeah, they do.
They have a lot of people that are giving to them, and maybe that's someplace that isn't as important to the goals that we have or something, so.
Yeah. Well said. So I put this back up also because, this is, right, this is our marketing slogan, basically, this is our mission statement. And, don't need an answer right now, but is this marketable? I tend to think it is. But if we're going to strip it down to the studs and say, hey, we need to look at everything, the way we market ourselves and everything we're doing to reach out into the community and bring people back in, whether it's Holy Family or whether it's, the church down the street. How do we market that? Are we marketing something that people want?
Can I just say,
Yeah.
we know what the transformative power of Christ's love means. But to the people outside of these walls, know what that means. And I think that's fundamentally the question and we know how powerful it is. And we know that it would be powerful for them if they were to understand it and experience it.
Yeah.
So then how do you get them to believe that, right?
Well, you're talking about evangelizing, and the Episcopal Church just typically doesn't. Right. It doesn't. You're talking about speaking your story. And literally, how were you transformed? We are, as a body, are not good at saying this is what happened to me. It's too vulnerable for us. We're too shy about it. We're not going to do that. So it's amazing that we have like a little banner out there that said even song or something. We weren't quiet about that.
Even songs.
Yeah, right. That's great. But anyway, you know what I mean? So I think that's hard because you're talking about telling your story. That's really what you're talking about. You're talking about people telling their story about why they come here and how they were transformed. How do you do that? If you marketed that, maybe people would.
Right.
Maybe that would. Or maybe it would scare people. I
Sure.
I think, excuse me, a lot of great ideas being discussed. But the reality is that for the most part, people find us, we don't find them. We talk about being evangelical, but that's a hard thing to do. We can discuss it and get ourselves excited about it, and we should try to do as much as possible, remind ourselves that that's important. But people find us for the most part, we don't find them. How do they find us? All the technology we're sort of talking about, and that is our website. And 2 or 3 years ago, there was a lot of discussion about our website, and is our website user-friendly? I can't comment because I'm here, I don't look at our website, but is it a really good portal for people on the outside to see who we are and want to come and try us out? And once they come try us out, are we open, welcoming, things we've talked about in the past? We used to have a welcoming committee.
Right.
And maybe we don't need a welcoming committee.
No, we do.
We have to remind ourselves when we see somebody new in church, to try to engage with them.
Right.
Not just with ourselves, but with them.
I couldn't agree more, and that's very well said. The website's been sort of an ongoing, a work in progress. And I think all websites are to some extent a work in progress. I mean, it all the time, right? The welcoming committee is a great point. And I think we do that. I would quibble slightly with the notion that Episcopalians are inherently sort of, closed up. I think we do a pretty good job in church. There are several parishioners who I always see out welcoming, a lot of you out welcoming people Do we need to put some more structure around that as we had with the welcoming committee? Probably, but again, right? There's not, to Mary's point, there's just not enough people to do all these
So
things.
we've got big things coming up.
Mhm.
We've got our Christmas Eve services,
Yes.
which are big. And music is a huge part of that. Why aren't we marketing all the music that we do around to the mass of the community? Come and experience, I mean, that's, put it out there, because I think you might get people to come in. And then it is a bigger time in the church in terms of more people coming in anyway, people coming back, and
Right.
the teenagers, as we call them, but it's an opportunity. And I think marketing our strengths, which is, I think our music is phenomenal. I
Yeah.
think there's 2 services, there's a kids service, market it out to everybody who wants to be a donkey or whatever, come, be a sheep, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we can do we do advertising in the Hinsdalean, and we do it in the Joins, which is great. We need to find other ways to reach out and market that are effective, because our website is kind of confined to us, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's things like where do we come up on a Google search, right? If you,
Or what about through like libraries, through some of these other organizations that you can partner with? Do they have oral groups? Do they
Right.
have, groups that get together, youth groups and things like that, where you can sort of say, hey, come be a part of this, just see what it's like.
Yeah, and to that point, expanding on that a little bit, we've talked to Tara Skorniski, our administrator, is in the Chamber of Commerce. So, how do we get word out through the Chamber of Commerce? I've said for years, and I don't know, I just need to follow up more. We should have little brochures about Grace Church that go into every single welcome wagon thing that people get when they move into the community.
Right.
These are great thoughts. And we could go on for a long time, but it's not the middle of the first quarter. No, I'm just kidding. We could go on for a while, but there may be other questions beyond this. But thank you for doing this. I sat here at David, sorry. No, I sat there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, I can't just drop this bomb and then not do anything. So I thank you for indulging me in this sort of thought exercise. This is really the power of Grace Church, right? We are sort of the people who are going to make this happen out in the community. And I thought this is what would happen, and can't say I'm surprised, but always impressed with all of the thoughts and all of the passion for Grace Church. So thank you. Thank you for your help. Yeah. Questions other than what we just discussed? Does anyone?
Is the YouTube channel that's used to broadcast the Sunday morning service the full extent of Grace Church's social media footprint?
There is, and people can describe this much more capably than I. Actually, the person who's downstairs, John Robinson, who does an absolutely amazing job. There's a Facebook page, there's a YouTube page, there's also, we have our own platform that people can click onto and get on. And of course, the services are recorded and people can come back. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I went through Don's spreadsheet and kind of pulled everything up. The fact that we have almost, an online viewership of almost 50 people per week, I think is great.
So it's Facebook and YouTube, that's it?
Facebook, YouTube, and then there's our own platform, our own website.
You go to the website.
Right.
Can we sell ads on YouTube?
What's that?
Can we sell ads on YouTube?
We are now far above my pay grade. So, David.
I think you used the term record transition.
Okay.
Can you please address where we stand on that?
So,
that to me is one of the key issues that we face.
So yeah, a little bit of an elephant in the room, right? So, I'm going to do this, and this may be satisfactory, it may not be satisfactory, but I've stuck my hand in the fire too many times. So, Father Chris is working through his transition and an exact date. There's a lot of moving parts, and I'm just going to say this. I don't want to put words in his mouth. If you want to reach out to Father Chris and ask him about what the transition plan is, reach out to Father Chris and ask him what the transition plan is, because he's pretty much in control of the transition plan. That's just the way the canons work and the way the bylaws work and the whole thing. So, please, I encourage you, if you're curious, you deserve to know. So, reach out to Father Chris. Sorry if that sounds like a cop-out.
So we don't have a date?
Not yet.
That's contrary to what I heard here before.
Right. No, so it's all something that, like I said, Father Chris is working through, and you should feel free to reach out to Father Chris and ask him where he is in that process.
Has any work been done to form a committee to find his replacement?
That I will address. That generally cannot be done until the previous record has left.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's very little that you can do. There's very little that you can do as a church. Maybe a few things here and there, but very little you can do before the record.
Let's talk about the records.
Mike, where did, is transition an appropriate term? Where did it come from? Well, I mean, again, we're getting into maybe too much in the weeds, but to say transition, certainly suggests something, and is that appropriate?
It's appropriately nebulous. Sorry. It's appropriately nebulous. I think I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't have a word for you, but I just...
What does that mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Let me just add, mine's not withholding anything, keeping information back. He is saying exactly what Father Chris directed us to tell people should members of the community ask. So mine's not hiding the ball or keeping stuff under his vest. He's saying exactly what Father Chris asked us to say.
Mike, it was your last one. Okay.
Good. I knew that question was coming, so now I feel good. Any other questions? All right, yeah.
Thank you.